Hello there, welcome to Brian Lomax's Movie Talk and my latest Blu-ray update. I've not made one of these in quite a while, but I have got a load of Blu-rays, particularly over the Christmas period. A lot of people buy me Blu-rays at Christmas. That's kind of the obvious thing to get me, which I'm very happy about, obviously. But yeah, let's just get into it. In no particular order. First up, we've got Clash of the Titans. This was a cheap buy from a charity shop. It's a guilty pleasure for me. I've said in the past, I really like Sam Worthington. He's not always on fire. I saw him recently in something that made me have doubts, but on the whole, I do like him as a performer. And this is, like I say, it's a bit of a guilty pleasure, a lot of action, quite a fun movie to watch. I think it's better than the sequel, despite what many people say, and I do think it's better than the original, despite what people say. I think other than Ray Harryhausen's work in the original's a bit overrated, let's face it. Next up is LA Confidential. I did an essay on this recently, a video essay, one of my favourite films. Shame that Kevin Spacey has, been involved in what he's been involved in recently. It made me lose all respect for him, but even so, you know, there's a lot of other people going to making a film, and this is one of my favourite films of all time. So there's that age-old argument, isn't there, between separating the artist from the art. It's a tough one, but I still love this film. Next up is The Accountant, starring Ben Affleck. Ben Affleck gives a pretty good performance in this, I think. Anna Kendrick is also pretty entertaining, and so is J.K. Simmons, for that matter. He always is, isn't he? This is directed by Gavin O'Connor, who's made some pretty decent films in the past as well, and this is one of them. I think maybe one of his finest. I did like it. I thought it was very entertaining. Next up is one of my favourite films of last year, War for the Planet of the Apes. This basically capped off what is now one of my favourite trilogies of all time. Because of how good this was, yeah, it's one of my top 5 trilogies of all time. Possibly my second favourite, actually. Behind the Dark... No, third. I may do a trilogies... top 10, top 5 trilogies video at some point, but yeah, just staggering film. All 3 of them, actually. You know, not so long ago I did a review of the very original Planet of the Apes film, and if you haven't seen that, well, I wasn't too impressed. I was a bit down on it, to be honest. I didn't like it, what can I say? But these new films I absolutely adore. I think they're great. Some of the best films that Hollywood have put out in recent years. Next up is Batman and Harley Quinn, a film I had tons of fun with. A lot of people have been really sniffy about this, that they didn't like a lot of the kind of sexual innuendo stuff between Harley Quinn and Dick Grayson. That stuff didn't bother me at all. I think it's within the genetic makeup of particularly Harley Quinn's character. So yeah, I don't know. It didn't bother me. I had fun with this film. I think it's a good laugh. And I think it's meant to be. You know, not every Batman film has to be the Dark Knight. You know, emphasis on the darkness. I liked it. I think the characters remained true to themselves, and it was just highly entertaining. Next up is Wonder Woman. This film's grown on me a lot more, I think, as time goes by. Not that I was ever down on it, you know, but I did a video not so long ago in which I ranked all of the superhero movies from 2017, and I put Justice League over this. I probably wouldn't have done that if I'd have done the video now. I think I'd probably put this over Justice League. But hey, we all have those mistakes in our past. Next up is The Green Zone, or just Green Zone, no the at the beginning of it. Basically, Bourne goes to war. Yeah, you either like Paul Greengrass's style or you don't. I like it. I think it takes you into the action in a way that, you know, cameras on tripods don't necessarily. That's not to say that I wouldn't rather have an action film that's shot on a tripod. You know, I think of something like The Raid If you're going to shoot action, big nice wide shots, long takes, that's the way I prefer it. But if you're going to do that kind of fast cutting action, then I think Paul Greengrass knows how to do it. And it's just a good war film. Great performance from Jason Isaacs in a supporting role, and Brendan Gleeson and Matt Damon obviously in the lead. Yeah, it's a good, solid war film. Next up is X-Men First Class. I think I actually prefer this over Days of Future Past. I know a lot of people think Days of Future Past, when it comes to X-Men films, is the be-all and end-all. I still think, you know, X2, Logan, then this, and then maybe Days of Future Past. But I like it. I love what Matthew Vaughn did with the X-Men world. I love the characters. And going back and seeing them young, Michael Fassbender and James McAvoy really embody these characters in the same way that Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen did. You know, they make them their own, and yet they both feel connected. They do feel like they could be the younger versions of those characters that were originally played by those different actors. Yeah, I love it. I love the relationship between Magneto and Professor Xavier and how that falls apart. It's very well done, very well written, very well directed. Next up is John Wick Chapter 2. This is the film that made me appreciate the first one. I wasn't sold on the first one when it first came out. I thought it was very overrated. I thought there was a lot of gun battles and not much else. And I watched this and I loved it. I thought it was amazing. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to check that first one out again. And that's when I realised I must have been on drugs that day, because the first one is kick-ass. It's probably equal to this one. It's hard to say really which of the two is better. I think I kind of like this one for various reasons. They're essentially the same. You know, it's just John Wick going around being a badass, kicking ass. This one takes a lot longer to get going, but once it does, it just doesn't let up from then on, and the action is really brilliant. Whereas at the first one, it's fairly more even paced, but I feel like there's maybe more hand-to-hand stuff in this than gunfights, whereas in the first one the gunfights take a bit more centre stage. But yeah, anyway, both great films. Next up is my favourite film from the 1950s, On the Waterfront. Cracking performance by Marlon Brando. Brilliant direction from Elia Kazan, who has made some of my favourite classic movies, you know, movies of the before my life period kind of thing. Yeah, won Best Picture at the Oscars, deservedly so, I must say. I can't often say that. It's got to be said that I rarely find myself agreeing with the Best Picture winner come Oscar time, but this is definitely one I'm in full agreement with. If you haven't seen this film, you must check it out. A great film about redemption, about a man who has fallen, shall we say, become less than he should be, and seeks redemption and finds it, I think, by the end of the film. And a very good precursor to Rocky, I would say. If you're a fan of Rocky and you haven't seen this, check it out. Speaking of Rocky, we've got another boxing film. My favourite boxing film, actually, and I am a big fan of Rocky, it must be said. That would definitely be in my top 5 boxing movies of all time. But The Fighter is my favourite. I loved it. I thought, you know, a lot of people were quite down on this, and I think it's because it came a year after The Wrestler, and Darren Aronofsky went and left this. He was supposed to direct this, and he left it to go and do The Wrestler. And then David O. Russell took over this. And for me personally, this is the better of the two films. I found The Wrestler to be a bit too dark, a bit too down. And I get it. I get where it was going. You know, this whole idea that you are what you are, and that's that. This film to me is a more hopeful film. And the fact that it's based on a true story as well, I think, you know, kind of feeds into my ability to buy into the characters, because you know that what's going on actually happened. A great performance by both Christian Bale and Mark Wahlberg, actually. You know, I know Christian Bale's the one who got the Oscar or the nomination. Did he win? Yes, he won, and as did Amy Adams for Best Supporting Actress. No, did she not? That was it Amy Adams? People won Oscars anyway for this film, and if it wasn't Amy Adams, it should have been. But yeah, I think it was Melissa Leo or someone like that. I don't know. A lot of people got nominated. and someone. But all the performances across the board in this film are just brilliant. Obviously Amy Adams is my favourite actress anyway, so I'm obviously going to gravitate towards this. But Mark Wahlberg, you know, a lot of people say he can't act or he's just the same in whatever he does. There might be some truth in that, I don't know, but I like him as an actor, and I think he does a pretty damn good job in The Fighter. For me, it's my favourite boxing film. Next up is Water for Elephants. I saw this originally on DVD and I liked it a lot more than I was expecting to. It's directed by Francis Lawrence, who took over the Hunger Games with the last 3 films and did an absolute stellar job on those. He also did I Am Legend, which is a film I've grown to appreciate more over the years. This is a very good film. I liked it a lot more than I thought I would, as I say. I thought Robert Pattinson was very good in it. He's proving himself to be quite an actor these days, taking on roles that, you know, show his chops. And Reese Witherspoon, and also one of Christoph Waltz's best performances. I think Christoph Waltz can have a tendency to overact in certain things. And I think it all depends on which director he's with. Certainly when he's with Tarantino, he does his best work. But I think he reins it in quite nicely here as well. And I think he does a pretty menacing performance, a pretty nasty fellow in this. I liked it. I liked the film, I liked his performance, I like where the film goes. Next up is Mimic, the director's cut. I'll be doing a review of this on my channel shortly, so look out for that. I will say no more than that, other than to say it's better than the theatrical cut. Next up is a film from 2017 that I didn't see, The Lost City of Zed. Yeah, the trailers didn't grab me, to be perfectly honest. Yeah, we got a 5-star review in Total Film, who are usually pretty reliable. A 4-star review in Empire. Again, you know, I tend to find that when those two are at odds, don't know what to expect. But when they're in agreement, I tend to find that they seem to be pretty spot on. So the fact that they both gave it high marks has kind of swayed me into buying it. I picked this up cheap from CEX, a couple of quid. So it's a blind buy. We'll see what happens. I like all the actors in it. Again, Robert Pattinson. Yeah, we'll see what happens with that one. I'm cautiously optimistic. Next up is Passengers. A lot of people down on this film last year. Just didn't rate it that much. I know there was a big controversy over the whole Jennifer Lawrence getting a higher pay packet, and then, you know, it turning out to not be the most feminist role if you really look into it. I don't care about all that. I enjoyed it, you know, and I think Jennifer Lawrence gives a cracking performance in this. I think Chris Pratt is Chris Pratt, but I think Lawrence, yeah, she sold me in this film, I think. I think she was good. Overall, I think it's pretty underrated. I think it's very entertaining. I liked it, and I would obviously watch it again, given the fact that I've bought it on Blu-ray. Yeah, if you're not seen it, check it out. You can have much, much worse films, I think. Next up is Star Wars Rogue One, or Rogue One, a Star Wars story, whatever. It's basically episode 3.5, and all the better for it, I think. I wasn't particularly thrilled about this when it was coming out, you know, like I wasn't sold. I mean, I looked at the trailers and I was like, yeah, great, it's a Star Wars film, and I found that's been the case with all of the new Star Wars stuff. I wouldn't say I'm the biggest Star Wars fan, yet all the new stuff they've done, when it eventually comes out and I get around to seeing it, I'm sold. So you'd think I'd change my opinion by now, but I think of the 3 latest Star Wars films, this is probably the weakest. For me, personally, I know a lot of people differ in opinion on that one. But it's still very good. You know, the action is really nicely handled by Gareth Edwards. Is it Edwards or Evans? Edwards, that's right. Not to be confused with the Raid director. Yeah, I like what he does on directing side of things. I think the film's main weakness, I guess, is just the fact that so many new characters are introduced, and then we'll probably never get to see him again, because this is sandwiched between the original trilogy and the prequels, and I think after this there's probably no reason to go back, so it's unlikely we'll see these characters again, I think. Maybe, I don't know, I could be completely wrong on that. So yeah, we're asked to invest in a lot of new characters very quickly just for this one adventure. So, but other than that, I really liked it. Thought it was a very good science fiction action film. Going back to another underrated movie, probably the most underrated film of last year in my book is Alien Covenant. I say underrated because this made my top 10 so far of the year. I'm still doing some catching up on films that were released in the US last year, your Oscar contenders and all that lot, so this may get pushed down. But at the moment, it's still in my top 10, and I know a lot of people hated it. They just, yeah, they're calling for blood. They want Ridley Scott off the project, and I'm like, calm it, No, I liked it. I like what Scott's done with it. I love the direction he's taken this franchise in. I've recently done a video essay on this over on my other channel, the Movie Evangelist. Check that out if you're interested in going a bit deeper with this film. But yeah, love it, and I just hope and pray that Disney's takeover of Fox doesn't affect the Alien franchise a great deal. I hope they keep Ridley Scott. I hope they bring him back. At least let him finish David's storyline, because David, quite frankly, is one of the most fascinating characters we've had in recent cinema, for my money. Sticking with Ridley Scott, we've got the extended cut of The Martian. The Martian is a film that I really liked when it came out, but I wasn't as sold on it as everyone else. And it got nominated for Best Picture. Me personally, I didn't feel like it was a Best Picture nominee. I thought there were plenty of other films that year that deserved that particular honour. But, if it hadn't had all the hype, I think I'd have liked this more. Like I say, I still gave it 4 out of 5, so I'm not being down on it. I do really enjoy it. I think Ridley Scott at the moment is doing pretty good work. I know not everyone agrees, but I wanted to see the extended cut. I think there's only like an extra 10 minutes or so, but let's see what happens. Next up is True Romance. At one time, believe it or not, this was my favourite film. When I was a teenager, and the number of films I'd seen in my life was in the hundreds and not in the thousands. Yeah, this was my favourite film. I loved it. I watched it so many times. It's been years since I've seen it. I think I kind of outwatched it, to be honest. But I'm at that stage now where it's been so long that I think it could again feel fresh. So I picked it up, be intrigued to watch it. This is the director's cut, I think, or there's extra footage. I don't know. Either way, I'll be happy to watch it again. I think lots of great performances, lots of little performances. So like big actors come in to do little bits. There's a cracking scene between Christopher Walken and Dennis Hopper. One of the best scenes in any film, I think. Not just this film, but yeah. So cracking stuff. Probably Christian Slater's best film, I'd say. This and Heathers, I think. It's a toss-up between the two. And finally, we have one of my favourite films of 2016, if you go off US release dates, 2017 if you go off UK release dates, and that is Lion. Loved this film. Absolutely loved it. I wasn't expecting much from it. I kind of went to it just on the off chance. I wasn't excited by it in any way. It kind of looked a bit like Slumdog Millionaire, but not necessarily in a good way. And then I watched it, and I was like, it reduced me to tears about 2 or 3 times while I was watching it. It was just a beautiful film, absolutely beautiful film, cracking performances all around. I did interview one of the actors from this, actually, Divian Ladwer, so check out that interview on my channel if you haven't seen it. He's a cracking guy, really great guy to interview, but just a brilliant film. Nicole Kidman really shone in this as well in a supporting role, I thought, and it deserved its nomination for Best Picture, definitely. Certainly more so than The Martian did. Anyway, there you go. That is my Blu-ray pickups for now. Hope you liked this video. Please do comment below. Let me know what you thought about any of these movies. Give me any recommendations. And yeah, until next time, crack it.